American businessman and WEF board member Mark Carney has finally been anointed leader of the Liberal Party and as a result becomes Prime Minister of Canada. All that's left to determine now is how cheaply they can buy off the NDP to get support to hold on to power for as long as possible. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. I'm your host. The way the Foreign Minister Jealousy was bringing Mark Carney in on top secret briefings, not including the other Liberal runners, and all before he was quote unquote elected as the leader of the Liberal Party, there's no surprise that he is now the Prime Minister of Canada, or soon to be, depending on the technicalities. What I would like to point out is that the Liberal Party quite desperately trying to push him to the fore like he's a very popular individual. I mean, this is how they announced he had won the seat.
In first place, the next Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, with 131,674 votes, resulting in 29,457 allocated points, representing 85.9% of the votes.
Did you catch that, everyone? They were sure to turn down all of the cheering so that you would hear that guy say 85.9% of the vote. Of the people that voted for the Liberal Party leadership, which is only about 150,000, 250,000 of which were disqualified. So I'm not sure why they disqualified more than they actually allowed to participate. That seems a bit strange. But of the 150,000 people that participated, roughly, don't hold me to the numbers, I'll get to them in a minute, 85.9% of them voted for Mark Carney. And he needed to hear this as he's accepting the mantle of Prime Minister. He needed to hear this as he's accepting the mantle of leader of the Liberal Party. They felt that this was the time to announce it from the pulpit. It just reeks of desperation to me. And that's how the far left thinks, right? They think in mob mentality. So they want you to believe that so many people are behind him, so many people are supporting him. However, they disqualified more people than they allowed. And they allow 14-year-olds from other regions of the world. So really, it could have been 14-year-old high school students in various parts of the world that have selected Mark Carney. I mean, he has a lot of businesses in the United States of America. They were probably Americans who were hoping that their father could still keep their job. Who knows? I will say this, that it was a pretty desperate thing to do, that it reeks of desperation when you start talking about the percentages in your... This is the victory. Like, I get you might want to talk about it later during analysis, but this is like, you know, everybody's supposed to be standing up and clapping, and they're like, oh, he got 85.9% of the vote. It's weak. It's just more liberal weakness. It's more liberal mob mentality. It's more liberal theater. And we've had enough of it. We don't need any more. However, I'll get into a couple of the numbers here simply because it's something that we should all look at. 131,000 votes that he got, 131,000, which is 85.9% of the overall people that were allowed to vote. But if you look at the other numbers, it's all told maybe 150,000 people. When the Conservatives voted in Pierre Poilievre at those extreme numbers, I mean, he didn't get through the second pass. So many people, he was selected in the first round. There were 250,000 people participating in that vote. Why the Liberal Party, who's already a minority government that's been propped up by another minority government, feels the need to try and tout the idea that 150,000 out of the 42 million people in Canada voted for this guy to become the new Prime Minister, the unelected Prime Minister, and the leader of the Liberal Party, is a bit strange in my mind. Now, I didn't cover the rest of his speech. I don't really think that I have to put myself through that. I'm sure it was a whole bunch of big bad Donald Trump. I don't like Pierre Poilievre because he is, you know, does better in the polls than me. We will have now time to cover all of the gaffes and all of the foolishness. There is absolutely no way in the world that Mark Carney is going to be able to survive a debate with Pierre Poilievre and Blanchet he will get turned into hamburger. There will be absolutely no doubt in my mind that even if he was in an English debate, he can't even go up to the stage and speak from the heart. He has to read it off the teleprompter. In a French debate over anything that has to do with politics, Pierre Poilievre and Blanchet are going to leave him standing there like he has no idea what he's doing, which of course is the reality. He has no idea what he's doing. He lives in a world where nobody questions him. He lives in a world where if he has to come up against independent media, he has an MP remove them from the property, call in all the police force. He's just another tyrant, a petty tyrant. Because when you can't stand up against the independent media, when you can't handle a question, how do you expect to come up against somebody like Putin or Trump? How do you expect to come up against the leader of China or the leader of India? There was other parts of it that were being covered. However, the CBC was there in full force. They didn't cover the Pierre Poilievre rally, but they did mention it, and they were pretty upset about it.
Absolutely.
And Pierre Poilievre did hold a rally today that was bigger than what we had here. It was more than 2,000 people, and it was his regular Canada First rally that he's holding.
I mean, there's 6 of them up there, and they're still upset that Pierre Poilievre got more people at his rally than they had at this entire event. What I really enjoy is the type of people that showed up, right? This is all liberal insiders in suits and ties, very little diversity. Meanwhile, you go to the Poilievre, well, I'll let you have a look at the crowd right now. I suppose the composition of the crowd probably upset them just as much as the amount of people that showed up. Not only was that just a room full of people in the middle class, but they were from every walk of life, young, old, whether they looked like they were living here a long time or they just got here. The crowd had all of it. They had their own signs, homemade. They were allowed to use their cell phones. They were everywhere recording. You can't record at Mark Carney's functions. You have to have, the only approval that you can do is the press approval that comes specifically from the desk of Mark Carney. They throw everybody else off, and because of the amount of cell phones that have made him look like a fool, he has banned them from being at any of his events. I find that to be very weak as well. I mean, the idea that the CBC thinks that they're representing all of Canada, that they're taking tax dollars from every Canadian, and yet only speaking to a very small crowd, then anybody that doesn't agree with the Liberal Party, anyone that doesn't agree with the CBC is somehow excluded, though it's every person that's paying taxes that kicks in their money. We have nothing but more of the same. So Mark Carney can talk about how he's an outsider till the cows come home. The reality is that he's exactly the same. He's censoring, he's hiding information, he's picking and choosing which group of Canadians that he wants to represent. And I think that just bothers the CBC to the point where they have to talk about it on camera. They have to complain about it on screen. And you hear her try to diminish it, right? She was like, his typical Canada First rally. And it's like, okay, so you look at that crowd and you think in your mind, there's more of them and they represent stronger, the more of the middle class. And in your mind, Rosemary Barton, you should try to dismiss the idea that they are interested in Canada First. Not interested in the environmental agenda, not interested in any of the woke stuff that's coming out of the Liberal Party. No, they want jobs, they want prosperity, they don't want to be in high density, they want houses. They're chasing a dream. And that dream is a decent job. That dream is friends, family, loved ones, no matter which type of relationship that happens to be. They all are chasing it. The Liberal Party trying to shame you into thinking that that's a bad thing is really something that we're going to bring to light here any minute. Now that the farce, this theater of the Liberal leadership is out of the way, which I still maintain that the Governor General should have dissolved Parliament and we would be into an election now. Of course, we still have to worry about how it's going to be funny to watch the stories and the backflipping and the verbal salad coming out of the NDP as they desperately cling to this parliament, that they tell themselves that they still have a few more months of government so they can collect the paychecks, because they have absolutely all of the numbers that the NDP lost are the numbers that the Liberals have picked up. That's just the way of Canadian politics. When you vote for one, you take away from the other. Now, before I wrap for this episode, I want to show you a clip from Sky News Australia, where they are talking about the environmental policies of Mark Carney and the impact that it will have on the economy.
Since being named leader of Canada, more of his policy positions are being exposed, including his obsession with net zero emissions.
Skepticism about ESG labels or sustainable labels, and that again is one of the reasons we're having this ruthless, relentless focus on net zero, because in the end, look, we can't stabilize the climate unless we get to net zero, and it's as simple, these are hard numbers. Your emissions are either A or B, they're going up or down, and if they're going down, are they going down consistent with the science? We anchor it in the science, the same science the UN and others use for the 1.5 degree objective.
Now that it's no longer all about being a Liberal leader, and I get that he was going to be parachuted in as an unelected prime minister. Anybody who took over leadership of the Liberal Party was going to be an unelected prime minister. What I want everyone to start to focus on is this obsession he has with net zero, and how most of the people that were at COP26, where that was picked up from, most of the businesses and the banks have actually left the policy. Like, they have left that COP26. They are no longer participating. Just like most of the countries that signed on to the Paris Accords are no longer participating, or if they are participating, they have stalled and moved their numbers 5 to 10 years into the future. Mark Carney has also written a book about how he really hates the fossil fuel industry, which is an interesting position for a man who clear cut 9,000 hectares in Brazil, who wants to invest in gas pipes in the United States, and who also wants to who has invested in pipelines in Brazil and in Saudi Arabia. I find that to be a very bizarre situation for a man who's driving around with a caravan of SUVs that are not a single one of them electric. It's strange how he wants for you that what he will not do for himself, that he lives in a mansion while he wants you to live into a tiny little apartment. Now, we're going to have time to go into that, because we're no longer just focusing on the Liberal Party. We're going to be focusing on all the gaffes and all the foolishness that's going to be coming out of Mark Carney. And I, for one, am hoping that Canadians will watch it, and just like I'm hoping that you'll share this channel, because I am up heavily against people like Mark Carney, C11, C18. They target me stronger than they target most channels, probably because I say things that they don't want to hear. Which, of course, means the only way that we can sort of come push back on him is to share this video, comment on this video, like this video, subscribe to my channel. I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next time.